Hey folks, welcome back to the show. This is Biz Talk. My name is Rick Gutierrez. I'm your host and your business advocate. I am having a great conversation with Mr. Greg Schaefer with VCSO Services, and we decided to continue the conversation because we are always having great conversations here on this show. But Greg brings in immense amounts of expertise when it comes to cybersecurity, and so this is something that is just continuing to develop and gain some really great momentum in terms of businesses needing cybersecurity now more than ever. And so, Greg, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I said, always great conversations, and you educate us. You're like a walking encyclopedia when it comes to cybersecurity. So,
A lot of people don't know what an encyclopedia is anymore, though.
well,
So.
that's true. Nowadays, they don't even know what it looks like. I mean, there's this big old, you need a bookshelf for an encyclopedia. But let's talk about the role of cybersecurity when it comes to leadership and business growth. So there's got to be an enormous amount of leadership that is advocating always for cybersecurity, especially when you're talking about growing a business and or scaling the business to the next level, right? So cybersecurity is often seen as a defensive function, but how can strong cybersecurity leadership actually contribute to a company's growth and competitive, this competitive advantage in today's market?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there when we talk about competitive advantage. A lot of times when you see a breach out in the world, it's a big company that gets breached, but they get breached because the threat actors come in through a small company, one of their
Right.
third-party partners.
Hmm.
And the larger organization does do due diligence on the third-party partners to make sure that their security program is up to snuff, so to speak. But really, the business themselves needs to work on their security program. Really, the problem that we have with this issue, it comes down to the small business's responsibility. And it's really a big risk with regards to our ecosystem here in the United States in particular. 99.9% of all businesses are small businesses, according to the Small Business Association. That's 500 or employees or less, give or take. And they employ over 45% of the employees in the United States. So this is a big issue. That's why focusing on small and mid-sized businesses is critical.
Hmm.
Now, once that executive leadership understands that, first of all, they get a little bit more understanding. They get away from the idea of like, well, we're too small, no one's going to attack us.
Right.
No, you're small. That's exactly why they attack
Exactly.
you.
Yeah.
Plus, once you start to be able to show externally, like through third-party attestations like a SOC 2 report or an ISO 27001 certification, that you are serious about your security, that does a lot for your reputation as well too. Folks are going to want to do business with you more, and customers are going to want to do business with you more. And particularly in the federal realm now, we're seeing that something called CMMC from the federal government is requiring the third-party subcontractors to have these security programs in place and to be able to demonstrate that as well too. And that's a huge business enabler because if you can't demonstrate that, you can't participate soon in
Right.
federal contracts. And that could mean a lot of loss of funds and income for some small businesses.
Yeah, and nobody wants that potential for loss of revenue because you don't have all of your systems in place. So,
Right.
so my next question is in terms of these businesses as they continue to grow, right? The security needs become more and more complex. So you guys over at VCSO Services, how do you guys help these companies scale their security strategies to match their business growth while avoiding unnecessary risk?
When we first start with businesses, we have to understand where they're at. Like startups, for example, they they're very immature in their security program. They maybe have a higher risk tolerance. They have very low margin, very low uh, opportunity for error with regards to their income. And so we have to understand their, I'll use the word risk profile. Now, as the business starts to mature somewhat, then there are more things they can do. They're getting bigger. Their threats are going to get a lot more involved and complex. We have to understand the strategic plan of the business and mirror the information security strategic plan with that. So what I'm getting at here is that often the most important thing that a virtual CISO can do, including our firm, is not so much on the technical side or even on the information security side at first. It's understanding the business culture, understanding their risk tolerance, and then working with them on that. Because at some point in time, we're going to have to deal with some other issues. They're going to get big enough that they're going to have regulatory issues to deal with, for example. And we can't pile all of that on a small business right out the gate. It would smother them. And there's not that return on investment from doing that. It's upon us, and well, of course, biased, but at vCISO Services, we do this very well. We understand the business needs first and build the security program appropriately.
Absolutely, and I think you guys are the right company with the right expertise to be able to help navigate those systems for those businesses. My next question, though, it's a little bit more on your expertise with working with leadership teams and boards, to implement cybersecurity policies. What do you see is the most critical element of a successful cybersecurity governance framework, and how do you ensure the leadership will buy into it?
Well, we don't want to have them adopt a framework just for the sake of adopting a framework. And I've mentioned
Right.
before that you will adopt a framework. It's a good place to start with one of the simpler frameworks like the CIS 18 or NIST cybersecurity framework, but you don't necessarily need to meet all of the requirements as you're first starting out, so long as you can document why, so long as you can document the ones that you don't meet and why you don't meet them. It might be, for example, this requirement isn't applicable to our business, or it may be that it's applicable, but we have other controls, other things that we do in place to mitigate that issue. And like one example might be that one of the frameworks might say that you need to secure your wireless network in the office. You need to secure your network in the office. We'll just leave it generic at that. Well, if you're a fully distributed company, that's not applicable because you don't have a corporate network, but you need to be able to document that. Now, from from there, as far as leadership buy-in, the only way that this works, the only way, is if the security officer, the security professional, security consultant, whatever you would like to call us, we speak business language as opposed to speaking security language.
Mhm.
Again, I get back to what I said before. We need to understand the business first and the risk tolerance, and then explain why this framework is going to help, which elements of the framework we want to talk about and deal with first. The ubiquitous 80/20 rule does apply here as well too, which really, if you put that into words, you can do an awful lot by addressing a small number of items within frameworks. Well, businesses understand that. They understand it's like, okay, we can't do it all. We have to figure out a way. Well, the way I like to say it is that my job is to help them understand which things that we can ignore for the moment. And I don't really mean ignore, but I mean this item, very little risk. Let's put it off to the side. This item, very big risk. We need to work on it now.
Yeah, and that is the reason why you are the expert in talking with those leadership teams, because you are able to pinpoint exactly where the vulnerability is and where you need to focus on. So that's amazing. So as we know, there are so many new businesses and many existing businesses actually that are embracing the world of digital transformation. What role does cybersecurity play in facilitating innovation while ensuring that new technologies don't introduce unforeseen risk?
This is one of the gaps that we see sometimes with businesses. They get enamored with the idea of this new technology that's coming out. They start to go down the path of investigating and maybe even sending out RFIs and getting responses, and then eventually awarding a contract based on those requests for information from different vendors, all without involving information security first. And we have a saying, some information security is that it's very difficult to bolt it on afterwards. Just if, in your mind, if you can imagine, like you have some sort of a mechanical device and then you bolt something on afterwards because you forgot to put it in the design. Whereas it makes more sense and looks nicer too if it's actually incorporated into the design. So businesses need to understand that, and part of that is conveying to them that we're not really, information security is not the office of no. We're the office of yes, but here's the least risky way to do it. Get us involved as much as possible first. If you don't have an information security consultant or an office, then contract with someone, anybody to help you with that decision. But I'll also get back to another one of the um, technologies that we've talked about before as far as innovation, so much with generative AI out there, which
Right.
is really transforming. It's the next big wave. I
Hmm.
know that that sounds almost like hyperbole in a way, but it really is the next big wave, I think, because it has the ability to make our jobs so much easier. It's not going to necessarily take away jobs as much as it's going to make it easier. But in order for it to make it easier, we have to understand the capabilities of
Right.
generative AI, and we have to understand the risks as well too. So, I've said before about talking about coming down to the basics. Well, understand the technology, understand the digital transformation that you're trying to do for your company, the technology you're bringing in, the processes that you're changing, understand what information is involved and the risks involved there, and then work to mitigate those risks.
Absolutely. And I think, by just having these conversations, Greg, we must have, several business owners or executive leadership teams that are listening to you and they're like, man, we need to get in touch with vCISO Services, in particular, Greg Schaefer. So how would we or how would our viewers get in touch with you?
The best way to do it is to go to our website. It's at www.vcisoservices.com. And there's a button on the front page which says schedule an appointment right there on the screen. You click on that, you'll get access to my calendar. We'll do a 15-minute free consultation and determine what the right path is for you. Sometimes it's not actually engaging a virtual CISO service, it's
Mhm.
going somewhere else. And we're going to be completely transparent with you because our goal is not to get more clients, it's to help you be as secure as possible.
Right, absolutely. Well, Greg, we've come to the end of this, segment show, and so we want to thank you again for being on the show and being an amazing partner here with us at Now Media. And so I think your expertise just goes a long ways, even in this small segments. A lot of our viewers are getting a lot of really great content and education. So thank you for being here.
And thanks for having me back, Rick. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely. All right, folks, thank you so much for joining us this week. We had great conversations with our guests. Hopefully you guys took some notes, and feel free to reach out. We're always here for you. This is going to be the end of this show for this week, so until next time, take care of each other.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.